Welcome everybody to Crypto Rosetta. My name is Savage and today we're going to be having a look at Algorand. So we're going to continue that scenario where we're talking about looking for this third wave. We have had this move continue to push to the upside, but we need to just bear in mind that we have broken through this channel, and I would be just watching out for that possibility of seeing something like this where we could still see this reject in and then see a continuation to the downside. We were talking about a few options in the previous video. Possibility that this wave is extending and we're going straight up for this wave 3. We also need to be aware there is a scenario where this could be a flat correction and we could see price come back down into the zone of this 1646 to this 1044. Invalidation of this idea of seeing a bigger impulse to the upside would be crossing this 0820. Now confirmation, given this as our low, would be up here towards this 92 cents 28. This would be a typical third wave area, though this can extend out. If we do get extension, other targets could potentially be 284 and this 879 as other targets where this third wave could continue up to, and then we would be looking for this additional fourth and this fifth wave. Okay, so let's get into the subwave counting here of the possibility of this third wave looking to actually extend out directly. So we're going to come into the 4-hour chart and we're going to talk about a couple of the ways that we were looking at this possibility of this third wave pushing to the upside. Now these counts are all viable, so we need to just watch how the waves react for more indication of which one is actually at play here if we are in fact looking for this wave 3. Now one of the ways that we were discussing this previously is that we could be looking at this move as a wave 1 that is incomplete here, where we have this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now this wave 1 would be the wave 1 of the wave 3. Now the way that we'd have to look at this last leg actually forming though would be as an expanding diagonal, but it is still possible, so this is why we're going over this. Now in this idea, what we'd be saying is that this move here is actually A, B, and C, and what we would be looking for here would be a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 to the upside. Now there's a couple of ways we can look at this move here. It is possible here that this could still need an additional fourth and a fifth, and the targets that I'd be looking out for with this would be the 0.786, which we've already hit, the 854, and the 1-to-1 level. Now 1-to-1 level would actually look to push us back up into this trend line. We do, however, not have to hit this. We've done enough now that this could be completed. So if we start to see a deeper rejection here, what I'm going to be looking out for as a zone of support will be this 382 to the 786. If we do see 3 waves down and we hold this area, this would then align with the idea that we could see continuation to the upside here in the additional third wave, which is looking for this 0.5538. Now this would mean that we're going to get a deeper retracement come in here. There are other ways where we might not get such a deep retracement come in, and we're going to go over those again. Now we could also see something more along these lines where we could just see this directly extend out. Now the key difference here, if we come into the 1 hourly, is that this move would be looking at this as our wave 1 and this is our wave 2, and effectively that we would have a series of additional waves 1 and 2, and we're looking for this zone here of this 45.53 to confirm this. So this would then be saying that we've actually completed this wave 2. Now we were talking about this previously and we're saying that this could just be ABC, and we came down and we hit this 1-to-1 target of this 25.03 quite nicely here on Binance, and then we did see this move to the upside. Now this move to the upside, if this is actually our wave 2 over here, this is going to be our invalidation point for the blue count that the wave 2 is completed. I wouldn't really like to see this do this A, B, and C, because then it's less likely that this is in fact following that count, and it's more likely then that, you know, this is possibly looking at more rather at the fact that we could still have that wave 2, that bigger wave 2 to come. So I'm going to be watching these key levels. Now within this idea, there's a couple of ways that this could happen. I've nicknamed this one the face melter because this is basically looking for a direct extension. Now, the idea here would be that internally here, we're starting to extend out. Now, what we'd be saying here then is that this is wave 1, this is wave 2, we have another 1, 2 here, and we're looking for this third wave to the upside. But if we do look at this as a 1, 2, invalidation is going to be here at this 30 cents 51. What I would be looking for to confirm this would actually be a push up towards 38.83. Now, if we look at this as another 1, 2 here, this would mean that we'd have to reach at least this 37.74 in order for this wave 5 to push us up towards this target zone here of this 41.03 to this 39.64. Now, if we do see a push up into this level here, this would then mean that this white wave 3 is completed, which would actually look to complete towards the 3.618 of this wave 1. Then we'd be looking for an additional fourth wave here into this 37.93 to this 35.18. Now, the key thing here is that we're going to want to continue to hold these lows. We want to see price start to push up impulsively, get an additional fourth wave here, maintaining this high, and then continuing to see this push up in this way. Now, this would then mean that basically we're not going to come back down to these levels again, and we're going to see this just continue to push to the upside, looking for this bigger wave 3 target here of this 45.53, given that this is a 1-2. If, however, we do start to see a deeper retracement come in here, where we start to take this low here of this 30 cent 53, the next thing I'm going to be looking out for is something like this, where what we could have is that this could actually be 1-2, this could be another 1 and a 2, and then we could see that bigger push to the upside. Now, the key thing here is I'm going to be watching this level if we do start to break down deeper here between this 30 cents 73 and this 28.58. If we continue to hold this zone, it's possible that we could be looking for this additional third wave to the upside, which could look to push us up towards 40 cents 17. We get another fourth wave and a fifth wave, which would look to potentially target this 43.06 to this 41.26 area. So if we start to lose these key lows here, particularly this one here of this 30 cents 52, then it's likely that we could see this deeper retracement into the zone. Now, this is going to be obviously into this previous consolidation, so I'll be keeping an eye on this area. The 50% is aligning with the top of this, as well as between this 382. If we are extending, sometimes the wave 2 will not drop as deep as this 618 to the 786, and we might just be focusing in on this top level here rather, which would align with basically retesting this channel, as well as looking to possibly retest this high here of this 30 cents. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. This would then potentially mean that we could see this move extending out here towards this 48.29 to this 44.96. And if I overlay this idea onto here, we can see here that that would then meet that requirement for that 1.618. So going to be watching that possibility. It is also possible here that if we do see price looking to push back down, and we're going to look at one other possibility here where we could still be looking for an additional fourth and a fifth. Now, the way that I would be counting this then would actually be that this move here is wave 1, this is wave 2, this is wave 3. We get a 3-wave move back down here, and then we'd get a small push to the upside. So the push up or the fail to push up is going to give us a bit more clarity as to which one of these counts is in play here. But basically, if we see a very small fourth wave back into this zone here of this 31.54 to this 30.08, preferably actually taking out this low over here, this will then give me more bias towards thinking that we're going to get this fifth wave to the upside here, which would be this 34.51 to this 33.51. If we do see this, then what I'm going to be on the lookout for here is that this could actually be another 1-2, and then we could be looking for continuation up. Now, the key level that we need to hold here in that case would be this 30 cents 14 to this 26.63. If we hold this zone, I'm going to be continuing to look to the upside. Invalidations for this count would be crossing this wave 1 here at this 29.86, and then also crossing this low here of this 24.94. So if we do see price push up one more time here, we see a small breakdown here, see price push up, and then we see a bigger retracement. This could then align more with this idea that this is another 1-2 here. So it's going to be important to see which of these key levels hold. So go back and check them out if you're trying to figure out which of these counts is in play. But the key thing I'm going to be watching is this low here. And then if we fail to hold this low here, I'm going to be looking to this retracement area here. If we fail to hold this low over here of this 24.94, then the likelihood is that if we're looking for bullish counts, that we are in this count here where we've actually already completed this, and we could be looking for a deeper retracement, which actually has moved up here. So I'm going to just move this target. So the target area is now 24.35 to this 17.63. which would align quite nicely if we move back down into this 50% as to coming back into these lows, this trend line over here. So I'm going to keep an eye on that if that does happen. If we see price look to have a bigger wobble to the downside here, this would potentially align quite nicely as well with retesting some of this previous structure here between this 24.50 and this area here of this 1787. Basically, you're going to be keeping an eye on these key levels to see whether we get a retest and see that continuation to the upside if we're looking for that bullish count. Now, what do we need to be careful of here? I'm going to just pop back out here onto the 4-hourly. As we said in the beginning, you know, it is possible that we could still be within this wave 2. And what I'm looking at is the potential that this could actually be a flat correction where we're going to still see price come back down and revisit this area. Now, if we do see something like this play out, it's going to be important what happens next, because if we hold this area and then we start to get bigger 5-wave moves to the upside, then it would confirm the impulse if we do see something like that. If, however, we see this move do something like this, where we come back into this target box and then we see 3 waves up, this is going to indicate to me that we're actually going to break down and actually take these lows out. So we need to be very careful with how we progress here. But if we do continue to hold this higher bullish structure, that is going to be my primary expectation of direct continuation and a bigger breakout. But if we start to break down in 5-wave structure, we need to just be very careful of this idea. Now, if we are looking at this wave 2, basically, I've extended this up slightly here to incorporate the 1.618. It's not a very common target for the B wave in a flat, but it's technically still possible. So this would be towards this 34.55. And the way we'd have to actually count this would be looking at this move as a bigger WX and a Y. Now, in this idea here, what we'd be then saying is that this is A, B, and C to the upside. Now, the problem that we have here is that if we want to look at this as a C wave, now if we're looking at this in this way, there's 2 ways that I'm looking at the possibility of the C wave playing out. Now, this would be one of them where we count this as a 5-wave move. We have this as wave 2 here. We have this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then we'd get an additional 4th and a 5th. Now, the key thing here is that after this 5-wave move to the upside, I would be expecting a bigger break to the downside. So it's going to be quite difficult to tell which one of these counts is playing out. It's going to be important to hold key levels and then see the actual 5-wave structure continuing to push to the upside if we are looking at that idea of that, you know, continuation here. If we just see something like this, where this is 1, 2, we haven't completed this blue wave 3 yet, and we're going to still see this support area here hold at this 31.61 to this 30.12, and then we see a 5th wave. We come back down, retest the channel, get an additional 5th wave towards 36.57 to this 34.77. Would align with the 1.618 area here of this 36.30, so going to be watching that zone. Then we could actually see this play out to the downside still. Another way we could look to count the C wave is to count this as a diagonal, where this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, in which case we could potentially already be completed into this high here. And then we need to see what happens. Like I said, 3 waves to the downside could then align with the idea of seeing that continuation. If we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave structure to the downside, we need to be very careful. Otherwise, what we could be seeing is something like the C wave starting to develop here, where actually this would then become our wave 1. We'd get 3 waves up, and then we'd look to continue this move back to the downside here. And if I overlay that impulse count, we can see that that would look to push us back into that 50% to that 0.382, which would be a very interesting zone to see how we react if we do start to see something breaking down in this way. So I'm going to be continuing to watch these higher targets and to see if we do continue to see that bullish bias continue to push through here, and we do continue to see these higher lows get held here. If we start to see these bigger impulses play out, then we're going to be watching out those higher areas, waiting for that confirmation of a bigger move towards this 92 cents, which could then look to push us all the way up here towards 146 to this $1.11. That's assuming that the 3rd wave is not extending. If it is extending, what we could still see is higher targets, as I said in the beginning of the video. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on these internals here, watching these higher lows. If they do continue to hold, then it's going to be important to see the price action follow. If we start to fail some of these lows here, we do have our support zones and the different ideas here. So we're going to be watching those zones and see how we react in those levels. Coming in here and having a look at the daily CPR lines, we can see we continue to print higher CPR lines. This is what we want to see in a trending market. Now, as long as we're above these central lines between this 3112 and this 2968, I'm going to be keeping an eye out on the possibility of seeing price push up today towards 3326, 3487, 3790, and 3944 upside targets. If, however, we start to lose these central lines, which could act as support if we do see another drop down here. I will be looking out for this potential to test this 28.87. This would be an interesting level as testing some previous support here. Other targets for today would be 25.97, 24.39, and this 21.46 to the downside. Moving over and having a look at the weekly CPR lines, we can see here that we had this test, we pushed up, we hit our R1 line, we came back down, we pushed back up, and we do have our R2 line here towards this 33.32. So we'll be watching that level as possible resistance. Other resistance could be at this 38.33 level above us. So if we do continue to push up, I will be watching those zones. If, however, we start to break down, we could still find support this week between this 25.62 and this 24.12 if we are looking to retest these central lines. Other targets to this week to the downside, should we lose these, would be 21.31, 16.54, and 12.94. But like I said, unless we start to play out that C wave, I wouldn't really see these targets come into play here. And we can see here that we've actually met all of our monthly targets for the CPR. So if we do continue to push up here, we don't really have any other targets on the monthly. But if we do look to come back down here, we do have the R2 sitting at 27.67, which could be support. 24.41, it's the R1, and then we have our central lines back towards 20.51 and this 19.24. If we do see a bigger retracement, going to watch these levels to see if we get some interaction with them. Okay, so I'm going to leave the video there. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please smash the like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, turn on those bell notifications so you never miss a video, and leave us some feedback down below. Also in the description, you'll find a link to the Discord. Come check it out. It's free to join. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.